Hello, and welcome to today's Happy Hour Tour. I am Brenda Holt with ARP Arizona. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence, ARP strengthens communities, and we advocate for what matters most to more than 100 million Americans 50 plus and their families. We focus on health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment, to name a few. ARP also produces the nation's largest circulation publications, the ARP Magazine and the ARP Bulletin. In the months of June and July, we will focus on communications and marketing to help prepare for and live a financially secure retirement. We will provide a wide range of tactics, including digital resources to help consumers increase their financial health. ARP is a wise friend helping consumers manage their money decisions during pre-retirement. Visit us at www.aarp.org/moneytools for tips, tools, and resources. Thank you again, and with that, I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, wide Avery folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so glad you can join us this evening. Oh my gosh. We've got so much fun coming up for you in just a few minutes. So my name is Marshall Shore, and I am your host for Arizona History Happy Hour. And I do have some sad news. You might not have heard Jana Boomersbach has passed away. She was an iconic author right here in Arizona, writing everything from fiction to probably the best known book about Winnie Ruth Judd, those murders back in 1931. Her latest book was Hellraisers and Trailblazing Women of the West. She will be sadly missed from the landscape of history and preservation and storytelling. And so I know they are planning a memorial for her. As soon as I know anything, I will let you all know as well. So today is July 18th of 2024. And so on this date back in 1864, Charles Poston was elected to Arizona's first territorial Congress as one of the delegates. Now, you might not know his name, but he is considered to be the father of Arizona. And if you try to track him down, you can find him down near Florence, where he is buried in a pyramid. It is also National Caviar Day. So, whether you like those fish eggs on a spoon, maybe you like them just kind of drizzled on something, or you want to run as soon as you hear the word. They were first brought to taste buds by Caesar Ritz. You might know that name, Ritz. He put it on his menu, and it became a very popular item. It is also National Sour Candy Day. Whether you like to pucker up or even get a super lemon head that may make your tongue explode, here's the day you can enjoy them. It is also International Nelson Mandela Day, where just like he did, the goal of this day is to celebrate and make our communities better. It is also World Listening Day. Now, when I first saw this, I assumed it was all about just listening to each other. But what I thought was really cool is actually about listening in daily life to all kinds of things, because they chose this date because of Canadian composer and educator R. Murray Schafer, who was a pioneer in the field of acoustic ecology and an advocate for preservation of natural soundscapes. And then it made sense. Like when you do an interview with NPR or something, they always put a microphone in just to get ambient noise to help fill in and make it more authentic. And so There you go for July 18th. Now, what can you expect tonight? Well, we've got a little bit of trivia coming up. We've got Little Arizona, an amazing small town, as well as some music history and lots of music history, as well as a beverage, and of course, an amazing guest. So, as I said, my name is Marshall Shore. I am also called the Hip Historian. And what does that really mean? Well, it means I get to play with Arizona history. Why, I'm in the throes of setting up right now, working with the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center to set up a tour for them coming up in September. And then looking for a date when we can set up a tour at the Arizona Heritage Center out in Papago Park. And then I'm really excited because we're going to be doing a little tea down in Tucson at an amazing Chinese tea house. That's really cool. And so I will let you know as soon as we get dates for everything all squared away. And get ready for some more fun. Coming up the end of September on the 27th, we are doing, since 2018, we have been doing banned book readings. And we're doing this at the Alwyn House on Friday, the 27th. So that will be a lot of fun. And then I'm excited. So on August 21st, which is a Wednesday in the afternoon, with the Society of Commercial Archaeology, my friend Chris Krause and I are doing a program we're calling Voices of an Era. It is looking at drag albums from the 30s to current, and how, and a lot of times it may be, especially those early albums, are the only ones that may help us locate LGBTQ spaces, which is really on a trend right now. So that's going to be a super fun program. And as soon as we get a date, as soon as we get a link for that, I will be sharing that around as well. And I'm also excited. We recently, my friend Melissa and I, started working with WTSM TV, which is a virtual TV station. So we are on every Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. So be sure to check us out on there. Now, I see some of you already found the chat, and so feel free to chat in the chat session, or you can also reach out to me on Facebook at Marshall Shore Hip Historian, Instagram hip_historian, or email hello@hiphistorian, or via my website hiphistorian.com, because I love to hear from you all. Now, it would not be happy hour without a beverage. And PJ, we had a lot of fun with this. So here we go.
Good evening and welcome to Melinda's Alley. My name is PJ Vader Barron, and our cocktail tonight may just give you a clue to one of tonight's trivia questions. Tonight we're doing a cocktail called Mom's Spaghetti. Now the spaghetti, if you're not in the bar industry, is going to sound like I made this up, but it's one of those things where we never let the facts get in the way of the truth. So there's all kinds of different sort of theories on where the spaghetti comes from, but really it's just kind of a take on an Aperol Spritz or Negroni Sbagliato, or all these different combinations of light summer sippers featuring Miller High Life, or as we call it, the Low Life, the champagne of beers. Now, the official way to make a spaghetti is to take about 2 ounces into a rocks glass and serve it as a sidecar. We're not going to do that. That's my sidecar. So we're going to do an ounce of Aperol just right into the Low Life here. We're going to do just a splash, maybe half an ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice, and then a little dash of hibiscus bitters. These are burlesque bitters from Bittermans out of New Orleans. It's a hibiscus and spiced berry. That, my friends, is Mom's Spaghetti. Bottoms up to better days.
So it was so funny when he was doing that. Had no idea where he was going with that. So sadly, I'm out of lemon juice. I need to go. I should have picked more lemons this season. So I am just enjoying a Miller High Life sans all the fancy accoutrements. But it was shockingly good and refreshing. So Now it's Little Arizona time. And so we get a chance to talk about a small town in Arizona. And today we are talking about Hayden, Arizona, which is kind of like right on that border of Gila and Pinal County, has a population of 512 and is about 2 hours kind of southeast of Phoenix, kind of near Kearney, Christmas, Dudleyville, kind of right in the middle of all of that. Now, it was founded in 1909, and it was originally basically a company town by the Kennecott Copper Corporation. And then in 1912, they built a smelter. And it is still operating today as one of 3 in the entire country, which I think is interesting. And it is still the tallest smelter chimney in all of Arizona. Now, the town was basically named for Charles Trumbull Hayden. If that name sounds familiar, you might recognize his house is the oldest one in Tempe, Sandwich. It used to be Monty's, as well as the building that was part of Hayden Mill, which is undergoing some renovations as we speak. So looking forward to some changes there. But he first started in Hayden. And so you can see here's what Hayden looked like in the 20s. And the old bank building is now the police station. It's a town that is losing population. And many say it's becoming a ghost town. Now, the mine and smelter are still in operation, but not at 100%. So that's creating some issues for Hayden. Now, they do have a golf course that opened up in 1930, and you can still go play golf there. You can go rock climbing, as well as go have dinner at Maria's Mexican restaurant. And, it's interesting because when they talk about Hayden, most people talk about how it's not a safe place to be at night. And I haven't heard anything different to that. So you might want to go during the day. And there were also all kinds of warnings about just don't go stumbling into old dilapidated buildings because you never know who you might find or the shape of those buildings. So before you go poking around, just check with some folks and make sure they know where you are and make sure you can go there. All right. So now you get a chance to hear from someone else other than just me. So let me bring on Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing okay. Can I say some things about Hayden, Arizona?
Of course.
Okay. So my friend Corey Busboom, are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Corey Busboom is working on buying all the buildings in Hayden, Arizona right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a couple years ago, he was really pushing for me to buy the old police station, which is next to the new police station. And because it was for sale for like $1,300, which is a very low price for a building, but I don't have $1,300 lying around, especially for a gag. But he was like, you should buy this building and then paint the real police station on the building. And I love that idea, but I'm like, what am I going to do with that? I don't know.
Well, it sounds almost kind of in some ways as kind of like what many small towns in Arizona have gone through in the past, where it's like the mine kind of shuts down, the town kind of becomes a ghost town. And then we have like modern versions of that would be like Bisbee or Jerome.
Yeah.
And so we shall see if that happens to Hayden.
Yeah. I think that Corey is going to do great things with it.
Cool.
I know that he's working on like getting film companies to film out there because it's a pretty much desolate town.
Right.
So they can have the entire town and
cheap. They can get the entire town cheap.
Yeah. And right now, most of his buildings are just being used for storage for old car parts and junk. So, yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, I have not been to Hayden, but now I'm kind of like, now I want to go.
Yeah, me too. I also heard from my friend Daniel Shercliffe. He's part of a hot rod group, and they will do this like yearly hot rod cruise around Arizona, and they stop for lunch in Hayden, Arizona, because they have a really nice long park. And so that's how he's familiar with Hayden, Arizona, although he's never been to any of the other buildings to explore. But he's like, I've been there like half a dozen times and had lunch. And he said it's always bizarre because they'll like set up and like barbecue and they don't see anyone there. And then all of a sudden they'll see like little kids just like appear in the park and like ask them for food and try to hang out with them. And he's like, it's very cool and bizarre. So, yeah. And then so hearing you say like people say it's not safe at night, I'm like, oh, that's like making me think about like Appalachia and like the people over there are like, don't go into the woods.
Well, you know, I mean, I remember it's like when I was working in South Phoenix, there were parts of South Phoenix where they were like, oh, don't go here at night because of all the hippies that hang out. So it's like,
it's so bizarre how much of people that don't live in Phoenix are still scared of Phoenix. But it's really not that scary.
No. I mean, well, it's where I decided to make my home. So there you go.
The first time that not the first time I went to Phoenix, but one of my first times going to like downtown Phoenix for a show, my car broke down. And so I had to get a ride from someone. And I was so worried about my car. I'm like, oh, it's definitely going to be stolen. Someone's going to break into it. I'm going to show up and someone's going to be living in it or something. And it was fine. In fact, the only place my car's been stolen was in Scottsdale. So,
right.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, Ryan, for folks who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been booking and promoting shows in Arizona since 2000, going to shows since 98 when I was 12 years old, which some would say is too young to go to shows, but it really saved my life. And then started playing in bands in 2002. For a while was known for being in a lot of bands and a lot of projects, but now I don't really have any. I was a big part of the Grand Avenue and Roosevelt scene in the early 2000s and volunteered at all the different galleries and venues down there. The Fix, Four White Walls, Paper Heart, Cone, Trunk Space. Then in 2013, I started a record label called Related Records, which is still active and self-funding, which is great. Like, it pays for itself, which is nice. But it's not big by any means. And Related Records is not genre-specific. The only common thread with any of the releases is that it's stuff that I'm excited about. There always seems to be a little bit of, like, I don't know, camp involved with the releases. And I didn't even realize that till a friend pointed it out to me a couple years ago. And then more recently, actually a year ago this month, maybe even this week, I started working at Bagelfelds. I'm the office manager there, and so I've been helping out with making that business run, and I love it. I love how incredibly desert style and DIY the business is. It's just like no one there really wants to be good or savvy at business. Like, we just want to make good bagels and be honest with people. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. and like, we get criticism sometimes from the way that we handle the business, especially on social media. But I'm just like, whatever, it works.
Exactly, and it's a darn good bagel.
Yeah.
Having moved here from New York, I'm a critic, so it's like, indeed, they are quite good.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so we're getting ready to do some trivia.
Okay.
Now, trivia here is not like when you go to bar trivia where it's all about what is the answer, on to the next thing. What we're going to do is we go through the questions. They're all multiple choice. Then we'll come back and go through all the answers and tell the stories of those. And so this is going to be a super fun show because we're talking about a lot of recent stuff. I mean, like punk rock history, which most people think Arizona has none. And it's like, oh my gosh, we have such an amazing punk rock history.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like to add as well that Phoenix has always had a very, for lack of a better term, rich culture for costume and gimmick bands, not including any of the bands that I've been in. There's just so many. And I don't think many people realize that.
Well, and so that may go back to Alice Cooper.
Right.
So, and even Waltz and Ladmo. I mean, starting off, hubcap and the wheel, starting off with a fake band in costume.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you can keep track of trivia. Some folks do it in the chat session. Some folks have their own separate notebook. Whatever makes you happy, go right ahead. All right. So our first question is, what Grand Avenue-based gallery venue from the early 2000s opened first? Was it A, Trunk Space, B, the Paper Heart, C, Four White Walls, D, the Fix, E, Cone Gallery, or F, Perihelion? So this is going back to when Grand Avenue was still 4 lanes. So while you are thinking about that, we are going to go ahead and move on to question 2. What post 9/11 art punk artist did the New York Times call Arizona's most avant-garde performer in 2005? Was it A, Treasure Mammal, B, the Twin Tozy?
It's Towers.
Towers? Okay, I wasn't quite sure. It's like I was
Twin Towers.
Hence the 9/11 reference. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Coitus for C. D, I Hate You When You're Pregnant. Or D, how do you say that one, Brian?
It's a Skeksky.
Skeksky. All right.
Yeah. It's the name of one of the characters from the Dark Crystal, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So which one of those do you think did the New York Times call Arizona's most avant-garde performer back in 2005? All right. Question 3. Which local business owner used to be in a performance art shock rock band called the Osama bin SARS? Was it A, Kimber Lanning of Local First / Modified Arts, B, Jade Noble over at Linger Longer Lounge, C, Grace Perry from Gracie's Tax Bar, or D, Sean Flores from Acme Print? So which one of those folks do you think used to be in a band or a shock rock performance group called Osama bin SARS? All right. Question 4. Which local musician has been in the most bands? Is it Andrew Jimsky? Is it B? I'm butchering his name. I already know that. So I just call him so Anna's going to be like, Anna, why don't you know his last name? And then B, Robin Vining. C, Ryan Avery. Well, that same name sounds familiar. Or D, Jamie Paul Lamb. So which one of those local musicians has been in the most bands? Question 5. What Tempe House venue hosted queer country masked superstar Orville Peck and his old no wave band You Sensei? Was it A, the Blueberry Fort, B, the Manor, C, YOBS, or C, Booyah Dashya?
C is pronounced Yobs, which stands for Ye Old Bike Saviors.
Ah.
And D is Booyah Dasha.
So you're getting the Marshall pronunciation of some of these.
Yeah.
No. All right. Question 6. This local alternative radio station had something called a damn card, which gave listeners early access to concert tickets and discounts. Boy, we could sure use that on some of these concerts now.
Yeah.
At local business in the late 90s and early 2000s. Was that A, 98 KUPD, B, K-Rock 106.3, C, The Edge 103.9 and 100.3, or D, Alt-AZ 93.3. So who used to be able to give access to concerts and discounts at local businesses? All right, question 7. At the Vans Warped Tour, on the main stage in the Celebrity Theater parking lot, this artist was booed off the stage on June 29th of 1999. Was that A, Ice-T, B, the Black Eyed Peas, C, Eminem, D, Molotov, or E, the Royal Crown Review? Which one of those bands were booed off stage? Question 8. The New Times journalist Benjamin Leatherman used to play in this Gigi Allen-esque punk band in Phoenix throughout the late 90s and early 2000s. Was it A, Cancer of the Piss, B, Meat Whistle, C, Very Nice Person, D, the Puck You Ups, or E, the Tight Holes? Which one of those bands?
That's the Fuck You Ups.
Ah.
That's a typo on my end. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
All right. Question 9. This famous early 2000s punk band played their first show in Arizona, opening for the New Jersey ska punk band Catch 22 in the Nile basement. Was it A, A Simple Plan, B, Yellow Card, C, Sum 41, D, Newfound Glory, or E, Taking Back Sunday? So which one of those played in the basement of the Nile? Question 10. The trunk space is known for being where many artists play their first show and get their start. Which now internationally known artist played their first show in Phoenix at this legendary music venue? Was it A, Jeff Rosenstock, B, Mac DeMarco, C, AJJ, D, Matt and Kim, or E, Scissor Sisters? I know which one I'm hoping it is. All right. So let's move on. And so while you are gathering all your options, we are going to talk a little bit about some music history right here in Arizona. And so Ziggy's Music, which has been around for quite some time. This building opened in the late 50s, was opened up by Ziggy Zardas, and he moved here, actually came to visit family on his way to California to play music for movies. And he was sitting outside the bus station pretty much playing his accordion and said, "Hey, do you want a job?" And he got a job playing on the radio. And so he stuck around and opened a music store, taught kids how to play the accordion. And this became such an iconic music venue, hosting such celebrities walking through the doors: Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, Dick Dale, Lee Hazelwood, Sonny Bono. And at one point, Dwayne Eddy walked in, wanted to buy a Gretsch guitar, which he couldn't afford. And Ziggy let him pay it off as he could. And that guitar was used to change music history. Basically, the twang heard round the world played on that guitar right there. Sadly, Ziggy's has closed with little chance of reopening unless a Hail Mary comes in, which is very sad. And that iconic sign, there are talks of it either going to a family member or being donated to the MIM. So Ryan, did you ever go to Ziggy's?
Yeah, I didn't know about Ziggy's until I met the Jemsek brothers. Andrew was getting accordion lessons from someone there, and Tristan was getting bass lessons from someone there. And so when I first met them and found out that they were in a band together, and then we decided to start a band together, I would go there pretty often to pick them up from practice or to get new gear or new strings. When our old band Father's Day started and we made our first, CDRs, they were kind enough to let us sell them there, which most music shops like selling local music, but, they don't like selling CDRs that are packaged in a folded up piece of paper. And Ziggy's was like, yeah, sure, you can sell your CDs here. So yeah, they weren't as important to me as they were to other people that I know. It's been interesting over the years meeting people that have a special place in their heart for Ziggy's. It's mostly like jazz and folk and experimental artists. And when they were closing, my friend Gabby was trying to help them find homes for all the cats that lived there. There was like a dozen cats that lived in the shop. And yeah, so many people were like, Ziggy's, I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, oh, wow, that sucks. No wonder it's closing. You guys didn't know about it when we were going.
Yeah, because I knew so many folks who were taking in local bands who were taking accordion lessons. Mm-hmm. I mean, they kept the accordion alive in so many local bands.
Yeah. And they were all sweethearts that worked there. So it's really a shame to see it go, especially I went there during its last month of being open when they were trying to rehome all these cats and sell the remaining stock. And the guy who was there, who also happened to be Tristan's bass player, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was telling me that they were only a few years away from being what's it called? Where you're marked as like a historical.
Oh, I bet.
Site. Yeah.
that, we could get this site marked historic just because of the music history there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's gotten a little more lax to be called historic because
Yeah.
especially the story can be so important.
Hmm.
And so,
But it's my understanding that, like, yeah, the guy who owned it passed it on to his daughter, and she ran the store until a few years ago, and she got Alzheimer's, and then kind of left it in the hands of the employees that were working there forever, and it just kind of dissolved. So I don't think. I don't, and everyone who works there is now very old. So I don't, I don't think that there's a lot of, like, will to try and keep it open on any of their parts. They're kind of like fine to be done with it at this point.
Yeah, because I know like his daughter is in hospice, and so so there's all kinds of issues, and so. But I mean, just as an iconic music venue that had so much historical music and celebrities walking through that. I mean, when they walked through the door, they were nobody. I mean, the fact that he just told Dwayne Eddy, like, pay what you can when you can.
Yeah.
I mean, and that one attempt at helping music change the entire landscape of music.
Yeah.
By doing that, by creating this community.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get ready for some answers, Ryan. This is where I think all the fun starts happening. And oh my gosh. All right. So question 1, what Grand Avenue based gallery venue from the early 2000s opened first?
So the answer is Perihelion. Okay, sorry. The answer is Perihelion. But only technically, because Paper Heart opened first, but their first location was not on Grand. It was over on, I believe, 5th Avenue in Jefferson or Jackson. It was a little square white brick building, and it was there from, I think, late 2000 until 2004 when they opened the new, more memorable location over on 7th Avenue and Grand. But it closed. When it closed there, it changed its name to the Aux, AUX, and then it changed its name to the Empty Space.
Oh.
And I've played in that building like 3 times, but never while it was technically called the Paper Heart. Anyway, and that's also where the trunk space got its start, was as a coffee cart inside the old Paper Heart gallery.
Oh, I didn't realize that's where Stephen JRC started.
Yeah. So anyway, Perihelion opened in the summer of 2001 over on 15th Avenue and Grand, where Kooky Crafts is, next to Bikini Lounge.
Right.
And then in 2004, the rest of the galleries that I had listed as potential answers all opened within 6 months of each other. I think starting with the Paper Heart in February, Trunk Space in April, Cone Gallery in June, 4 White Walls, and the Fix in the, like within a month of that. It was just incredible. I think mostly because it's hard to imagine a place like that existing now. Like a place that like has art and displays art and sells art, but then also has experimental underground live music. And that's like the main thing that's happening there. And,
and that was really the fun of Grand Avenue was, oh my gosh, you didn't really know what was going to be going on in any gallery at any given time.
Absolutely. And then, in between 2004 and 2006, which is when most of them closed, there was, like 6 or 7 of these spots that were all doing like variations of that same thing. It was wild.
Yeah, no, it was a great time for Grand Avenue. I mean,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So many cool, I have so many cool memories of some just really cutting edge art stuff and students that were like their projects that were just kind of mind bending.
Yeah. Oh, what was that? There was a gallery over there as well that was close to Cone Gallery. I'm drawing a blank on it, but it's where Space 55 originally started. The like avant-garde theater nonprofit. What was it called? Anyway, there's a gallery that they didn't really do music. They just did like theater. But they were also a gallery on Grand Avenue. And that's where Space 55 got its start. And it was, yeah.
Oh yeah. They were in that space. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Did you ever go to Perihelion?
Oh my gosh, I've actually got stuff on my bookshelf that I got there. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean with Amy Young, and so
yeah. Yeah, that was such a cool.
That was a must visit on any first Friday.
I feel like, no disrespect to my friends who ran those other galleries, but I feel like Perihelion was always had the best art.
They did. I mean, well, I think that was Doug and Amy, and their partners really kind of be keeping critical. But I also loved it was like I remember walking into the Fix at one point, and they had a heavy metal band that was playing live their reaction to watching Scenes of War.
Yeah.
and I was like, at that moment, I then had a reason to understand heavy metal music.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, now I get it. This is anger.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that's what some of those guys were great for, was just kind of shaking you out of your comfort element.
The thing that I loved about the Fix was that Lee Berger, the guy who owned it, didn't like metal or hardcore music. But like within a year of opening, that's what it became known for. The space became known as like the hardcore venue. And he was like, why? He'd see me booking shows at like all these other galleries around town. And he'd be like, why don't you book more here? And I'm like, you're the hardcore venue now.
Right.
I'll book a show there if I think it's appropriate for that scene. And he's like, I don't want hardcore here all the time. And I'm like, but your space is perfect for it. It's indestructible. Because it was an old like car warehouse.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And then they also had like ASU students were doing like their MFA projects. Some really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So lots of fun. And, I mean, and now it's like, I mean, there's not nearly as many galleries there, but
Grand Avenue's still really great.
It is. I mean, exactly. I mean, it's still, there's still a lot of stuff going on. And I mean, I love like the Oasis, which is a live workspace for so many artists.
So. Although I do miss that. I mean, it sounds weird. Weird's not the right word. It sounds silly to be nostalgic for the way the Oasis was when it was a hotel that was just like filled with crime all the time. Like, there was so many times, for a while I lived on Grand Avenue, and there were so many times where like I would hear gunshots and see gunshots across the street at the Oasis. And then someone would call the cops and it would take them like an hour to show up. And like my understanding was they were just like, we just know that's where crime's happening all the time. So as long as it stays there, like
and doesn't cross.
Everyone is safer. I don't know. It's fucked up.
All right. Question 2. What post 9/11 art punk artist did the New York Times call Arizona's most avant-garde performer back in 2005?
That would be I Hate You When You're Pregnant. I feel like this is probably an easy one for people who are familiar with I Hate You When You're Pregnant. Have you ever seen I Hate You When You're Pregnant?
No, I've never seen them perform.
Oh, okay. So it's this guy, Phil, and he's giant. He's like 6'8", and he would perform usually in like tiny underwear, like you can see in that middle photo. Like he's just wearing tiny underpants, and his songs were very, very fun and absurd, and they were simple. So like if you had one of his albums, you would learn all the songs to it like pretty quickly. If you see him live once, then like you're ready to see him again, because the whole thing was just like a mob of people singing along and participating in these performances. I always had kind of mixed feelings about his shows, though. I mean, I loved him, obviously. That's like my thing. But I always felt I only saw him like not completely blackout drunk like once. And so like I don't know, like I'm not stoked when I see like the main performer is just like incapable of singing their own songs. But other people adored it, and I definitely could feed off of that energy. When he wasn't completely blackout drunk, he was an amazing performer. And like that photo of him in the cowboy hat playing at the Argo shows, like it was incredible. Anyway, I forgot all the other. Oh, right. The other bands that were listed on there are Treasure Mammal, who just celebrated 20 years of that project. Abe's one of my best and oldest friends, and his project Treasure Mammal has evolved so much over the years, and I love it. I think it's one of the best things Arizona's got.
I was so bummed to not be able to see the last performance.
Oh, at the Trunk Space?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I had to miss it. Twin Towers was a 2-piece, pretty short-lived. They were pretty funny and very post 9/11 art punk. And also, maybe I should explain that a bit. So there were, like, in 2001, 2002, it's like all comedy. No, let me back up a bit. In 2001, 2002, it was just like every weirdo in their 20s had like all of this anger that they just didn't know how to express. And so like it came out in these like absurdist, offensive, fucked up ways. Like, and yeah, and so Twin Towers, I Hate You When You're Pregnant, are both really great examples of that. There's another band in Phoenix for a short period during that time called Nagasaki Love Bomb. Anyway, yeah, so Twin Towers was like a 2-piece offensive rap group. Skeksky wasn't based out of Phoenix. She was based out of Prescott, and she had like the most sexually explicit songs I had ever heard. And I loved them. She always referred to her ass as a dick trap, which I love. I love that. And so every once in a while I'd book shows for her in Phoenix. But I first found out about her when I played a show in Prescott. And there's some videos of her on YouTube, but they're hard to search for because Skeksis is a...
You keep running up with Dark Crystal comments.
Yeah, you keep... Yeah. So, anyway. And then the coitus was Corey Busboom's old like, experimental circuit bent electronics band. It wasn't offensive in any sort of way. It was just very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Question 3. Which local business owner used to be in a performance art shock rock band called Osama bin SARS?
That would be Grace Perry from Gracie's Tax Bar. A lot of people know her and remember her as the singer for Landmine Marathon, which was a very popular metal band based out of Phoenix. Landmine Marathon toured all over the world and was featured in all these like hard rock and heavy metal magazines. But between 2003 and 2005, she also had this very funny project called Osama bin SARS, which featured her and I think 2, maybe 3 other women, and then the guitar player for the band was one of the guys from Peach Cake. And they'd wear costumes and they'd like scream about incest and wear funny wigs and shit. I don't think they had any recordings. I wish that they did because I remember enjoying it quite a bit. But something that made me really happy while working on this trivia as I was trying to find photos of Osama bin SARS, and I found a New Times article where someone was asked, when you moved to Phoenix, what made you feel like you had found your community? And I don't remember who it is that they're interviewing, but they said, I moved to Phoenix in my early 20s, and I went to go see the Poly6 play at Modified. This was in 2004, I believe. And they were like, I was excited about the Poly6, who rule. They're from Japan. But I didn't know anything about the openers, and the opening bands were Fancy Pants and Osama bin SARS. And seeing them, go wild in their funny costumes made me realize, like, oh, this is where I want to be. And this is the community and scene that I want to be a part of. And what makes me feel so good about that is that I booked that show. It was one of only, like, a dozen shows that I booked at Modified. And I put Osama bin SARS and Fancy Pants as the openers because I knew it was going to be packed. There was, like, over 300 people crammed into that tiny gallery.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is going to be, like, I don't think these bands have ever played for an audience this big. And I want all these new faces to see what my friends are doing. And I don't know. You just never know what the, like, long-lasting impact is going to be when you do shit like that. Because it probably would have been smarter and more mature to put, like, a more seasoned professional band opening for this legendary Japanese, Devo-esque punk band. But yep.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. So which local musician has been in the most bands?
So this is kind of a toss-up between Andrew Jemsek and Jamie Paul Lamb. I'm sure if you asked either of them, like, I'm sure if you asked Andrew, he'd be like, oh, probably Jamie. And if you asked Jamie, he'd be like, oh, probably Andrew. If you try to count the number of bands that they've been in based on your own online research, you'll probably find 30 to 40 bands. But if you know them both personally and you've been involved in the music scene for a long time, you'll know that they've actually been in closer to 100 bands. And so, yeah, it's a tough call. I feel like because Jamie Paul Lamb is like twice the age of Andrew Jemsek, that over time, Andrew will be in more bands than Jamie, but also who's to say?
And and sometimes they're in the same band.
Yeah, many times they are in the same band. This is a photo of them in this band they're in called Puppy and the Hand Jobs. Yeah.
And then I just saw Moonlight Magic is playing tomorrow night. I forget where, but
yeah, that's another band that they're in together.
Right.
Also, rest in peace, Eddie Detroit. I just found out about how he died a couple days ago, which is incredibly sad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
All right. Question 5. What Tempe House venue hosted the queer country masked superstar Orville Peck's old no wave band, Nonsensia?
It's New Sensei.
I was like, it's Nonsense. So,
yeah, that would be Ye Old Bike Saviors. And I was like, I know that I've seen the flyer for it somewhere online while I was trying to dig for it, and I couldn't find it. And then I remembered that I have this zine that I think one of the people from Pigeon Religion made, and it's got all these old flyers from Tempe house shows in it. And sure enough, it's in here. So I just scanned it.
Nice.
And it comes with a CD of live recordings from that period of time. And it starts with a New Sensei song. Anyway.
Very cool.
I feel... right. The other venues that were listed on there, Booberry Fort was pretty short-lived. I played there once, and I stumbled on my words, and the crowd started chanting, "You fucked up! You fucked up!" And I thought that was very funny. You ever get teased, and it's so good that you're just like, I can't be mad at this. You guys got me so good. The Manor, original name was The Rape Manor, which is disgusting.
Indeed.
That was a house venue in Tempe that was hosted a lot of more violent and hardcore bands. I never went there. Never felt welcome. What was the other ones that I had listed? Booyadasha was the short-lived name of the tribe. Did you ever go to the tribe, Marshall?
I don't think so.
Okay. The tribe isn't a Tempe house venue. It's a Phoenix house venue. And it is over... It's that building that's right next to Ace Hardware on 24th Street and Oak.
Oh, okay.
And it was the most perfect house venue, in my opinion, because there's not a lot of houses. Like, there's houses behind it, but most loud bands played in the basement, and you couldn't hear anything outside. And because it was right next door to the Ace Hardware, there was, lots of free parking. You didn't have to park in front of someone's house like an asshole.
Right.
And yeah, and then it also had this beautiful patio that was just like covered in, old yucca trees and shit. It was a really beautiful spot. But when Preston Bryant moved in there after the tribe had been closed for a few years, I don't know the other people that were living there with Preston, but when Preston moved there with other people and they decided to reopen it, they wanted to change the name to Buyadasha. And I don't remember the significance of that name, but I love that the community kind of mutually decided, no, this is the tribe, you idiot. We're just going to keep calling it the tribe. So
that's such an Arizona thing.
I know, right?
No matter what the name is, we're not going to call it what it is.
No.
We call it what we want.
Yeah. Yeah, real ones know that, FedEx is still Kinko's, especially the one that's on Central. Everyone that I know that still prints there is like, oh, I'm going to Kinko's, and I know exactly what they're talking about, because that was where everyone went to get shit printed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, question 6. This local alternative radio station had something called the Damn Card, which gave listeners early access to concerts and discounts at local business in the late 90s and early 2000s.
That would be the Edge. And you know what's frustrating is I can't find a photo of the Damn Card anywhere online. But I definitely had one when I was a kid, and I used it to get concert tickets early. I don't think I ever used it for anything else because I didn't have a lot of money. But such a wonderful idea for a radio station to do, I think. I mean, I don't know. Radio's mostly dead, but so maybe it's not a good idea anymore. But it was still so wonderful, and I think, if anything, it just built more devotion and community around that station over the other alternative stations at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. At the Vans Warped tour on the main stage in the Celebrity Theater parking lot, this artist was booed off stage June 29th of 1999. That made national headlines.
I was there when this happened, and it was incredible. Eminem's album had just released, I think, a month earlier, and they weren't playing My Name Is on at least any radio stations that I knew of at the time. But not even a month after this happened, he was so huge. But I remember, I was 13 years old, and they were handing out not demo tapes, but promo cassettes for Papa Roach. Papa Roach and their single Last Resort. They had these promo tapes that were being handed out all over. And when Eminem came on and started rapping, he just got pelted with these Papa Roach tapes. And he was just so angry and not understanding why people were doing that, and which made people throw more shit at him. At one point, I saw him run backstage, and then I saw someone physically pushing him back out onto the stage like an old vaudeville gag. And he was just no, I don't want to be here. It was so funny. And if you look on YouTube, there's a video of him on the Vans Warped Tour later on, after the Phoenix show, interviewing people about why do you throw shit? And everyone's just I don't know, it's just what we do. And that's true. Almost every band that played had stuff thrown at them, but they didn't make a big deal out of it. Eminem made a huge deal out of it, and people booed him for it. It's funny.
Indeed, but yeah, I remember living in New York and that made national news.
Yeah.
About what happened. I didn't even realize it was here in Phoenix until I saw the question. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. You want to know an extra fun fact about Warped Tour and Phoenix? Limp Bizkit had the same thing happen to them the first time they played Van's Warped Tour. And the Phoenix date, they got booed off stage. Which I think was like 96, 97.
Okay.
I don't know.
Funny.
Yeah. I wasn't there, but I heard about it.
All right. So question 8. Phoenix New Times journalist Benjamin Leatherman used to play in a Gigi Allen-esque punk band in Phoenix throughout the late 90s and early 2000s called
Cancer of the Piss. Yeah. I never got to see Cancer of the Piss. I had one opportunity to see them at Cone Gallery, and I missed it. I don't remember what I had going on, but Benjamin Leatherman did a New Times cover story on me, and in 2006, and that's when we got to become friends, and we bonded over doing kind of fucked up live performances. And hearing about Cancer of the Piss was just like, wow, I cannot imagine you like cutting yourself or, you know, like shitting on stage or whatever. That's wild. I have some MP3s of Cancer of the Piss that he sent me. They're pretty loud. But real quick, I wanted to mention some fun facts about the other artists that I had listed, which are all real. One was Very Nice Person, which was my friend James, who used to interrupt other people's performances and just like play loud feedback and like play loud guitar. I don't really understand, like it kind of felt like something he was doing, like not to be mean to them, like it was something that he'd do to like friends, but also like if you weren't in on the joke, you thought that Very Nice Person was like an asshole. I don't know. Who else did I have listed there? The Fuck You Ups was this punk band. I think they were based out of Tempe or Mesa. I saw them play once, and I was passing out flyers while they were playing to other people in the audience, and they found me and like targeted me, and the whole band like pushed me to the ground and kicked me. Which is saying now, I'm like, oh, that is very sad. But at the time, I was, yeah, at the time I was like, this is wild. This band rules. What are the other bands that I had listed there? The Tight Holes, I never saw, but that was my friend Sonny's band, and I saw their name a lot at that time. They were more of a like Tempe like bar band, but recently on Instagram, he shared like, I'm trying to find a flyer for the show, and I am scared to search for it. The lineup was Anal Cunt, Tight Holes, and I Don't Give a Fuck.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, don't search for that.
Exactly. Some things are better left alone.
Yeah.
All right, question 9. This famous early 2000s pop punk band played their first show in Arizona, opening up for the New Jersey ska punk band Catch 22 in the basement of the Nile.
Yeah, that was Sum 41. All the bands listed as potential answers I have seen open for ska bands in the early 2000s. But I don't know if it was their first show in Arizona. But I do know it was Sum 41.
Okay.
It was their first show in Arizona. And they were opening for Catch 22. And the thing is, in the early in 98, 99, it's like the whole music industry was like mutually decided ska music is not cool. They're just like, this is lame. Like, no more ska. There was nothing positive written about ska music. It was just like, ugh, I can't believe we used to like that. But there were still some ska bands that were very active and playing really big shows. And so a lot of these bands, especially the like pop punk bands who later became huge, their labels would be like, we want you to get in front of people, but you don't have a draw of your own yet, so we're going to have you tour opening for a ska band. And so that was just like the format at the time. It's so stupid because most people at these ska shows did not like the pop punk bands, which was the case for Sum 41. It was like most people were like, this band is awful. One of the bands that I had listed there was A Simple Plan. I saw them open for the Mighty Mighty Bosstones at the Cajun House.
Oh, wow.
And I was like 16 years old, and I remember them saying, we have all this white shit in Canada called snow. And I said, we have all this brown shit here called shit. No one gives a fuck. And got a very loud laughter from the audience, and the band was just like, okay. Guess we'll move on. Newfound Glory, I saw them open for The Impossibles and the RX Bandits. And then later, when Newfound Glory became a big deal, they would put those bands opening for them, which is very sweet. Yellow Card and Taking Back Sunday, I saw both of them open for the Voodoo Glow Skulls at Nita's Hideaway in 2003.
Wow, another iconic venue.
I know. It was on Valentine's Day. And my girlfriend at the time broke up with me at that show. But, it's so stupid that was what the music industry decided to do. It's like, put these bands with other pop punk bands. It's not like there's...
they completely clash. Although what I do like is the fact that the Nile is still a working venue.
Yeah, I mean, it closed in at the end of 2002 and became a church for like 10 years. Maybe not 10 years, but it became a church for a while, and that was very bizarre. Especially because one of the last murals on the walls in the basement was like an alien being aborted.
Oh, well, there
It's like,
you go.
Oh, okay. So you just put a fresh coat of white paint over that, and now it's like a holy place. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, then when the church was leaving, thankfully some old punk kids decided to reopen the Nile, and what's the owner? I think her name's Michelle Michelle Wolf or something like that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Anyway, the guy who used to own the Nile was kind of a scumbag. That's kind of what made the Nile so much fun, was like how shady it was. But the new people who own it care very genuinely about the community, about there being an all ages space,
right,
for kids, and yeah, it's way better. It feels weirder for someone who spent like every week there as a child to go back. I've only been there maybe 5 times since it's reopened.
Okay.
Every time it feels very bizarre, but I can appreciate it for what it is now so much more. And I think it's very, very cool that it's still open and still booking amazing stuff.
Right. All right. Question 10. The trunk space is known for being where many artists played their first show and got their start. Which now internationally known artists played their first show in Phoenix at this legendary music venue?
That would be Matt and Kim. I don't know how many people still give a shit about Matt and Kim, but for a while they were a very big deal, and their first show at the Trunk Space was very, very magical. They played in the middle of the room. If you're not familiar, their setup is just a keyboard and a drum set, and then they both sing. And they set up in the middle of the room, and so the whole audience just like surrounded them as they played their wonderful blend of like happy, uplifting pop music. And I remember Soft Shoulder played that show as well. I think James, my friend James, is the one who actually booked that show. But anyway, the other artists that I had listed there all played very early on at the Trunk Space. Jeff Rosenstock's first show in Phoenix was with this band, Bomb the Music Industry, which played all their later shows at the Trunk Space, but the very first one was at Four White Walls, actually. And apparently no one was there. I didn't go. I didn't know who they were. But by the time they came back around, they played the Trunk Space, and they were like, wow, were any of you at our first show at Four White Walls? No, you weren't. No one was there. So he's still got a soft spot for the Trunk Space. Mac DeMarco, I don't know if it was his first tour. I feel like it probably was, but Psycho Steve booked him at the Trunk Space. There wasn't a lot of people there. And then, like a year later, he blew up and is, playing Crescent Ballroom, selling out. AJJ, of course, they're hometown heroes, but their first show wasn't Trunk Space either. In fact, they used to be like a modified band. You know how some venues get they just book a certain act a lot, and then they kind of become like that band.
Right.
AJJ used to be a modified band, and then they would play Trunk Space every once in a while, but then it wasn't until 3 years into their career that they became a Trunk Space band.
Okay.
But and then what was I feel like I'm missing one other one that I had listed, but that's okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, I always love to ask people how they did, but also with that caveat, it's not how many you got right. It's just, Ryan, thank you so much for just bringing these places back to life again. The Trunk Space, and back when it was on Grand, was a magical place for so many musicians.
Yeah.
And they kept that magic even when they moved over into the old church. And I know they're now looking for a new space, doing some pop-ups,
Yeah.
and doing some art shows, and so lots of good stuff. So thank you so much. So are there any places, do you have anything coming up?
Yeah. A week from today, I'm going to be moderating a panel at Changing Hands Bookstore for an event that's being organized by Komal. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But it's this new organization that right now they're just like selling food related books. But they're really working towards building a more unified restaurant and food community. Because that's something, like, I don't know how it is in other cities. I lived in LA for about a year, but I didn't really see that much unifying community stuff with the restaurant industry. But that's what they're trying to do. And this is their first like big collaborative event. I'm interviewing Charles Blokenfeld of Bagelfelds, Jessie, forgetting her last name, but she's from Valentine's, and Celeste Murtaugh, who opened the Coronado and Dark Hall, but has since left. And yeah, it's going to be fun. And then after the panel, there's going to be a like zine presentation done by Carissa of Wasted Ink.
Cool.
Zine distro, and everyone who attends gets free food. There's going to be some dishes there that are a collaborative effort with some of the panelists and event organizers.
Wow.
And then they
That
also
would be
get
worth going just for that. I mean,
yeah.
I miss Celeste cooking.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Celeste is involved with the food portion, but still, it's going to be good. There's like 3 different dishes. None of them are like a full meal. They're all like appetizer hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, no, I mean, right. I mean, you just want a small, like, a mousse. I mean, like a little nosh.
Yeah. But then everyone also gets a copy of the new Bagelfeld zine, which is called If You Know, You Know, issue number 2. Yeah.
And I love, so was there a number 1?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In November of last year, Christopher Nelson, who runs Nelson's Meat and Fish, he's an old punk, like Gen X punk guy. Charlie Blokenfeld of Bagelfelds is also a Gen X punk guy. And, I'm a like elder millennial punk person. And Christopher was looking at the new Bagelfelds merchandise that I was making and that we were selling, and was like, wow, all your new merch is very like punk. When's your zine coming out? And he said that like kind of mockingly as like a joke. And then Charlie was like, no, we should make a zine. And I was like, I don't want to do like, that's so stupid. Like, restaurants don't make zines. And he's like, yeah, but we should do one. It would be good. And I'm like, no, well, let's not do one. And then he was like, yeah, you're probably right. And then a few hours later, he was like, Brian, I really want you to make a zine. Will you please make a zine for Bagelfelds? And I was like, all right, I mean, sure. So I made one, and I didn't think we were going to make more. And then he was like, no, I think we should try and make it a quarterly thing. So here we go. Issue 2. I think issue 2 is much better than issue 1. They're both very great, though, and they're only $3, which is cheap for a zine.
Right.
And there's interviews with people in the local food world. There's jokes about bagels. There's recommendations of things to check out in Arizona or on TV. There's it's mostly paid for with advertisements for other local businesses that love bagels. Yeah, I don't know. It's cute and it's fun, and I like that Charlie is the type of person who is like, I don't care if it's stupid. Let's do it and see if it works.
Right. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah, let's just have fun. So,
no, I completely get that and honestly admire that because,
yeah.
I mean, I've done the same thing where it's like, this is just a passion project. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else is going to like it but me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So.
Me too.
Cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your intimate knowledge of that punk scene.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize you were going to clubs that early.
Yeah. I'd go to like Boston's for Moonstomp Wednesdays, which was their like weekly ska night that Congo Shock would always be the headliner, and they'd bring ska bands from around the country. And when I started going to the Nile, I was there at least once a week. I'd spend all my time there if I could. And people would just look at me like, what the fuck is this baby doing here? Like, and especially when I got more, I don't know, confident and charismatic, then it was like, for a while it was like, oh wow, like, you're the coolest little kid here, like, wow. But really it's just like, I had parents that didn't care or know where I was, so so I would like take the bus to downtown Phoenix or to Tempe or to Mesa or wherever, and then I lived in South Scottsdale, over on like 86th Street in McDowell, and the buses stopped running in Scottsdale at 10, but they would run everywhere else in the valley until like midnight. So I'd take the bus to the edge of Scottsdale and then get dropped off and walk to like a gas station and then like call someone in my family from a payphone and be like, can you pick me up? I'm here at these cross streets.
And look at you today.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Ryan, again, thank you so much. So we have behind basic from the vault. So we're going to talk about Lollapalooza and how today is back in 1990 was the very first Lollapalooza.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. And then we end with the video you shared for Grace Perry as she's playing with the Osama bin SARS. So we'll see. I'm trying a new thing, so we'll see if all that works.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's see from the vault. So out by Firebird Lake is the Motorsport Park, and so that was the second home of Compton Terrace, where back in 1991, 18,000 Valley residents gathered at Compton Terrace. And for the inaugural Lollapalooza, which was kind of the groundbreaking festival that then toured the country with all these different bands and brought with Danny Zalesko, bringing all these bands together at Compton Terrace. And, the weather wasn't that much different than what it is today. It was like 110 degrees. And so there's all this talk about how gear was malfunctioning. I'm sure the heat was getting to some of the performers because they were suddenly igniting emotions going on stage. And so it set the tone for so many other festivals.
Have you seen the new documentary about Lollapalooza that's on?
No.
It's amazing. It's a 3-part series. What's it? I think it's on Amazon. Anyway.
Okay, I will definitely go check that out.
They talk a lot about the very first show, this one in Phoenix. Am I going to get too derailed if I keep going?
No, go
right.
Okay.
So, I learned this from the documentary, but then there's a follow-up that's new to me and exciting. So, this was Nine Inch Nails' first time playing in Arizona, and they were using, like, they're a mostly electronic band, but their electronics are, I mean, they weren't like vintage back then, but they were like old and kind of junky electronics. And they didn't have the same sort of like storage to care for their electronics the way Living Colour did. And so, yeah, their equipment broke during their first song. And so they just like smashed a bunch of shit on stage and then stormed off. And apparently the rest of the bands were like, I don't know if we should have brought Nine Inch Nails on tour. They don't know how to do this. But then by the end of the tour, like, they were one of the biggest bands and people were coming out just for them and stuff. Anyway, so a few days after seeing that, I'm at work at Bagelfeld's and I'm talking to Charlie about it because being Gen X, I'm like, you were like, did you go? And he's like, oh yeah, I was at the first Lollapalooza. I'm like, that makes sense because you were probably like a teenager then. And he's like, yeah, I was like senior year of high school or something. And I was like, what do you remember from it? And he says, I remember Nine Inch Nails just like being a bunch of babies and throwing a tantrum on stage. They didn't even get through one song and it was such bullshit.
Wow.
Like, I love when you like, yeah, when that happens where you like read about something happening or you see a documentary about something in history happening and then eventually you talk to someone who like was there and experienced it firsthand and their little bit of perspective adds another layer to it and makes it more enjoyable.
Right. That insider knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's really cool. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. We're getting ready to end, so I'm going to play Grace's video and have a great rest of your night.
You too.
And so look forward to hanging out with you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So, and this is why I always say if you're watching on Facebook, be sure and share because you're not going to get this history anywhere else. Oh my gosh. And so that's what I love about what Ryan was doing. So I always love to give a shout out to not just the guest, but Cole and Chris, who made that great video that we started with, and PJ Vader Barron for his Mama Spaghetti. And so let's see if I can make this work. And we get